I'm sorry, guys. That intro tag was not correct. This is Greg Jubb alongside Ryan McGrath today. Brad's in Boston, and we're going to talk about the Boston Marathon today.
Oh, man.
Boston Marathon, dude.
What a day. What a wicked race it was today.
I mean, where do we begin? There's so many topics to talk about here. I think primarily, let's be honest, the heat. It was hot. 80 degrees doesn't sound like too much, but when you're running 26.2 miles on the roads in the open, it's going to take its toll on you, especially when it's April and you're used to different weather.
Well, that's exactly it. I think you look at, for a majority of us East Coasters here, you're training through the winter. Even though this winter wasn't that bad, it's a shock to the system. You go from running in 50, 60 degree days to a day all of a sudden where it's 80. You just don't have time to adjust. There's nothing you can do. Hydrating, salt, it's only going to stop so much of the bleeding. And
Ryan, you pulled some numbers just a couple minutes ago. We talked about people that one didn't even pick up their packet to defer to next year. How many people dropped out? How many people just said, you know what, this is too much?
Of course, the point you're alluding to is a couple days ago, Boston Athletic Association recognizes that, hey, the heat's going to be a problem. We don't want to put runners at serious risk. So we're going to say it's up to you guys. You have the choice. If you would like to defer your entry for this year's race to the 2013 edition, you're allowed to do that, but here's the deal. You have to still come up to Boston, pick up your race packet, and you're not allowed to start the race today. You still have to pay for next year. So, but at the end of the day, you're going to be guaranteed entry into next year's race. So of those, as Greg pointed out, 4,290 people is the number that I'm seeing did not start today's race. But of those, only 427 picked up their packets. So that means only 427 people have the ability to defer to next year.
And people were worried, like, well, people are going to defer. How's that going to affect sign up for next year's race? Really, in the grand scheme of things, for a race that was 27,000, or supposed to be 27,000
right.
competitors this year, 427 people really isn't going to upset the apple cart too much.
It shouldn't.
For next year.
And of course, this year was the last year under the older timelines, the time standards that they had, meaning that next year, if you're a male in the open division, they call it under 39, you have to run under 3:05, 3 hours, 5 minutes. For the next year, this year was 3:10. So in those 5 minutes, that's a lot of people that's going to affect. So with only 427 deferring, I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal.
And just that number is staggering. 4,000 and change. Are we talking about people just getting demoralized here? For those who are running Boston, you have to qualify, right? So you're thinking that a lot of people who are running this race are motivated runners. They're probably going out there and saying, I'm going to make the most of this. I want to get a fast time in. Do you think so many people are not even starting the race because, you know what, this is going to be too much? A lot of runners are very meticulous about conditions, what they wear, their pre-race routines, etc. Do you think people were just demoralized by the heat?
I think that was a big part. As early as 10 days ago when they showed that forecast, they said temps could be in the 80s, maybe up to 90. A lot of people see that, and especially if you're close by, maybe the people that didn't have flights already booked, hotels and whatnot. Certainly the people that are coming from internationally, you're not going to change your flight. You're probably just going to go through with it. But I'm not sure how this compares in normal years to the not start rate. Obviously, every race has it. Usually it's about 10% of the field won't show up on race day, get hurt, don't feel like going, whatever the case may be. So this seems high. I would say probably more like 2,500 would have not shown. So this looks like a high number.
Exactly. And let's go to the results here. The men's race, 9 minutes slower than last year, 9 minutes and change. Wesley Courier, the former 5K standout for the University of Louisville, comes back really in the late stages of the race to pass Levi Matebo, who kind of took it out and pushed a surge not too long after half marathon. So maybe around mile 16 or so, if I remember correctly. He gets second. The winning time, like I said, 9 minutes off last year. Wesley Courier runs 2:12:40. Levi Matebo comes second in 2:13:06. And really, he died because the third place finisher, Bernard Kipyego, 2:13:13. He wasn't even considered a factor in the race towards the very end there. He really almost caught Levi Matebo.
No, and actually, you bring up Kipyego at mile 25, the very last water stop. If you were watching the telecast,
drops his water bottle,
stops dead in his tracks, goes back to retrieve it. If that doesn't tell you how badly these guys needed water, with 1 mile to go, he's stopping and he was still able to come back. So you're right, absolutely for Matebo. just tough day at the end.
Yeah, and I'll tell you as a runner, from experience, I know what it's like to be out there in the heat and to have that gulp of water. If it refreshes you. And, and especially in heat like that, maybe momentarily you start to get broken down again. But really, if you're fading, especially in the late stages of a long endurance race, you kind of need it. But to think here, could that be the difference between him getting third and second? It's possible.
You just never know.
It's up for debate, though.
You never know.
But a good point nonetheless to point that out, that he did drop the water bottle and stop to pick it up. The women's race, Sharon Sheparab, 2:31.50. Yeah, not near anywhere. Not anywhere near last year's time of 2:22 by Caroline Kalel of Kenya. Once again, heat's beaten down on these women. They had a pack of 5 after half marathon, and then there were 4, and then there were 3, and then it was Jemima Sumgong, and then Sheparab, and then the last 600 meters, I think they said, Sheparab just took off.
And you could see it too. Not the hugest fan of the commentating going on during the race, but the one point that they did make, and was absolutely right, was the stride pattern, the stride length. You could see that for Sumgong, it was a lot slower, just turning over slower, that marathon shuffle, so to speak. And then for Sheparab, it was, leaning forward, really getting after it. And as soon as they turned down to Boylston, half mile to go, it was all hers.
Yeah, she really just slingshot that turn, and then you could see the change of pace right there. I was impressed. Sumgong kind of hung on there. Only 2 seconds. The final results here: Sharon Sheparab, 2:31.50. Jemima Sumgong, 2 seconds behind her, 2:31.52. And then Georgina Rono pulling up third, 2:33.09.
It's amazing to think that after 26.2 miles, that these athletes are barely separated. Just who has it in a 200-meter dash to the line. It's really amazing.
I love it when it comes down to that. It really makes. I'm glad I got to have my live stream actually function. Mm-hmm. I missed the first 13.1 miles. Unfortunately, my internet service was not working out too well, but it came on, but it really turned out to be a nice race. People are talking about time. Sometimes it's about the race itself. Don't worry about time. People want to see fast times at Boston. It's a fast course. It's a very storied course. Obviously a very storied race, if not the most storied race.
Right. And next year, nobody's going to remember the time. They're going to remember who won Boston. You now are etched in history as a Boston Marathon winner. And for some people, like American Jason Hartman, it was really more about just getting that race in and having a good day.
Right. 2:16 at the Olympic trials. Did not come close to making the team. An impressive time nonetheless. One of the higher finishers.
Yeah.
But today comes out fourth.
And the way he did it, obviously a lot of people dropped out that were ahead of him, but sometimes it just says you got to stay in the race until it's done. And he gets rewarded, runs a 2:14. The guy is a big guy.
A big cat.
6'3". He's a very big guy for a marathoner.
I can't help but think they were saying he's 6'3", 160. I'm 6 foot and change, 160, and I don't think he was 160. I think he's a little bit heavier.
I'm 6 feet and 170 most days, and he looked, based on what I saw, camera might add 10 pounds, but he looks like a big guy.
Yeah, frankly, that's not marathon build. Usually the marathoners are more compact, so someone who can carry that much body weight and stature through a race that long and battle the heat like that, that's impressive. The guy's tough. He really, for me, that was kind of the underdog story of the day.
He absolutely earned that payday today.
Very cool. But I guess who was there? My usual co-host, Brad, our usual co-host, Ryan. I love having you here, man, but we got to get Brad on the phone.
Man.
Brad.
Hey, guys. How you doing?
You were on the runaround, my friend. This time, not in the booth. You're calling from Boston, correct?
Yeah, it's warm up here, I'll tell you that. And wait a second. First, we got to say 6 feet. If you guys are 6 feet, then I'm 6'6". Man, you guys just tell that to the women, right? 6 feet tall. Yeah, I know how it is.
That's what my doc says.
Even when you're in a different city, Brad, you're still giving me trouble. I tell you what, you find a way every time. So how was it, my friend? Was the heat really that bad?
It was that bad. It was 72 degrees when I left the hotel room this morning at 5 a.m. And by the time the race, at 8:30 a.m., at 9:30 a.m., it was 82 at the starting point. It was warm. It was tough. When those guys were coming down Boylston Street, the top guys looked like they had gone through a war. It was that bad. Nobody was sprinting. They were barely moving. The ninth place finisher from Japan, Tamura, had a good kick to outkick Casorio from Kenya, and that was the only real kick I saw all day. Everybody else was just trying to get through the race. If you look at the top 15, 15th place is 223. My son Jesse ran 248 today, just barely finishing, taking 3 liters of fluid afterwards in the mid 10, and he finished 184th. So, I mean, that tells you how bad the course was today.
Well, I've run with Jesse a few times, and I know he's in 220 shape, so it just goes to show you, I mean, and he's a tough kid. And it just goes to show you the heat, not everyone can be a hero. You got to, I mean, today, how would you validate this statement? Invalidate or validate, Brad? It's about who ran smart today.
Yeah, I think it was pretty much, I'm going to invalidate it. I think it was pretty much more of who could just get to the finish line and who figured, hey, there's another race, another day. I'm not going to kill myself here today. Because there was a lot of top guys were dropping out over the course of the race. If you looked at we had the updates at every 5K going along, and you could see there was still a huge pack at the halfway point. But right after the halfway point, when the mile splits for every 5K, we're averaging 506, 507. All of a sudden, they started going up to 514, 517, 520. People were just wanting to get through it, I think.
So do you think it was more like who's slowing down the least? Because everyone was talking about Wesley Courier, the guy who won the men's race, saying that he was a 5K stud for the University of Louisville, and he's got the foot speed to take on Levi Matebo at the very end here. Do you think that he just ended up slowing down less than Matebo? You think that was the story of the day?
Yeah, I definitely think it was. I mean, Matebo, they weren't that far apart when they hit the top of Boylston Street. But you didn't see Matebo really increase his turnover at all. He was just, all right, I'll take second will be good enough today, I guess. So it was a tough day. Those medical tents were packed. It was almost like a busy restaurant at night where they were trying to get people out of the back of the medical tent as quickly as possible so they get new customers coming in the front of it. The one thing I got to tell people who come to Boston, this was such a top-class organization, race, everything. I mean, they had everything covered. I was just so impressed with everything from the expo to the media people to the medical people to the race organizers themselves and how much absolute care they gave to every single athlete out there. It's worth the trip to try to qualify to get here to Boston if you've never done the race before, or just to come up and see it. It really is a fun thing for people to come to.
Lives up to its reputation then, huh?
Oh, yeah. Maybe the wheelchairs. So, but the wheelchair guys, my goodness, how fast they go.
Oh, world record for the guy out of Canada.
Yeah, 3 minutes, 3-minute win for that guy. Nobody was even close to him. But even the wheelchair people towards the end, they were struggling coming down that last stretch that he had zapped them too. So, and I had heard 5,000 people were no-shows today. They upped the numbers a little bit later. The last I left the press room. So it was hard to get interviews with people today because everybody just said it was hot with the word in between before hot to describing the weather. So.
Thank you for being radio friendly there, Brad. We appreciate that.
No problem. I had to think about it for a little bit. I made friends with people from Mexico and Canada today, so that was pretty unusual for me. I actually talked to people, so that was nice.
There you go. So, you're in rare form, my friend. But we're about to wrap up this first segment here, Brad. But thanks for joining us. Thanks for giving us the Spectator Insider look there. So,
all right, guys. Have fun. I'll see you next week.
See you, Brad. Sounds good.
All right, man. Later. Bye.
And before we wrap up here, something I want to point out. I mean, just to show you that the heat really does get to you. It gets to the best of them. Jeffrey Mutai, last year's winner, 203. And Caroline Kalel of Kenya, last year's female winner.
And,
both just faded. Mutai dropped out to 30K.
For Mutai who dropped out, and now, unfortunately for him, with the ultra-competitive Kenyan Athletics Federation having to make their decision on their Olympics team, he may get dropped. The guy who ran the fastest marathon ever recorded at last year's Boston Marathon, won Boston and New York, might not be on the Kenyan Olympic team.
And that's the way it is. Anyway, coming up, we'll be talking to Baltimore locals and ultra-running standouts Christian Kreutzer and Serge Arbona, who will be competing in the USATF 24-hour endurance run championships. Serge actually won the national title last year. I'm telling you, if you want to hear about athletes who are as tough as nails, you do not want to miss this. Stay tuned.